Now I've measured out the inwhale so I wouldn't make a big mistake, and I'm feeding it under the crossballs right here. It was pretty easy to do. I've got to position it a little bit up forward, and then I'm going to pull it amidships up to position. Now it won't be perfect, but I'm going to clamp it there. It's just getting it in, an approximate position really right now. The crossballs are put in position so that I could use them to either pull the inwhale up by putting a spacer on the outside at the guard, and I can pull it down too, because the way these things work, you can do both. So it's able to get it right in position right where I want it before I do any cutting of the ends. What I'm doing right now is just going around and pulling it up into a rough position, actually. You have to get at each one. You have to tighten the clamps because otherwise they could fall off and everything. So you have to work it up in stages because this won't come up as high as I want until I loosen that clamp. So I'm going to go down here and loosen this one up, and it's going to come up some more. Now I've got the starboard side one fastened into position so it can't go up and down. I can use it for clamping on that side if I want. And the other side we're doing right now. Yeah, let me check it up forward here. I wanted to show you how I went about it. I had to think about it a little bit because you could have an awful time trying to get this thing in position. Now I'm going to pull up forward on this inwhale up and lap it over the breast hook, and I'm going to come back to that and saw that with a saw fit as well. I'm using a straight edge across the boat to gauge how high I've got the inwhale up or down as compared to the other side. I gauge the other side exactly the same way. It edge sets pretty smooth, so you don't have too much trouble. So I've got it right where I want it, just exactly the right height. And like I say, the only important part right now is from here back. So I have a little bit more adjustment up forward, but that'll happen after I fit that. So I put a square on the inwhale considering the approach angle is not going to change. I'm going to slide it up and see how close the notch is to square to the top of this. It's got a little opening at the top, so I'm going to square it across, which happens pretty easily. Like that. I'm going to tip it just a little bit, so I'm going to cut it a little bit off a square. Maybe something like that. So now I'm going to space the inwhale inboard so that when I finish cutting right through the inwhale, I don't smash into the knee and make a mess. Even on this, I have to put a clamp on it. Now the knee is fastened in place, but this end of the inwhale needs to be clamped nice and tight so it doesn't vibrate. These cuts are kind of weird because, you're not cutting through at 90 degrees to the board, and you end up with quite a bit of saw in there. If you don't have really pretty good control, let's say, the saw will jam up on you and you have all kinds of problems. The other thing that can jam it up is a little bit too much sawdust between the blade and the cut. So you have to do some nice gentle strokes without trying to cut to get that out of there. And then I stood the saw right up and cut it right off. A little bit clumsy, but I didn't cut into the knee at least. And now we're going to push it in there and see what it fits like. Okay, now. Take a look. Well, it fits close, but there's a space at the bottom, so I am going to do a saw fit. Now, I want to pick it up because it fits too tight right now, and I said we're going to have trouble with it, because the saw will jam up. So what I'm doing is I'm picking it up beyond where it's supposed to be, and I'm just slugging it with a little sledgehammer a few times to drive it forward. It wasn't perfect, so I had a little space at the bottom, but it was tight at the top. So I'm going to do what they call a saw fit. Now, if the two were touching each other really, really tight, you'd never get away with it because you'd be sawing in there and you saw off one lump and it just pinches the saw and you're in all kinds of trouble. So to do a saw fit even at 90 degrees like this one is, you have to create a little space. So I pounded it up a little tiny bit and I got a little space there. It should work out pretty good. You can't be very aggressive because if you do, the saw will just lock up on you. So it takes a little bit of a hand to do this, but let's see how it works out here. I'm better off in this position at this point. See? That's it right there. So now, I'm going to go back up the other end and pound it down aft until that fits. Now, I'm going to loosen the clamps just a tiny bit because it goes a little easier if it isn't clamped up too tight. Did it close up?
Oh yeah.
All right, perfect. So now that's exactly what I did on the other side, you know, of the boat to get the height of the inwhale to match, well, not match level, but a certain height above the guard, right? And it has to maintain that all the way down, otherwise it would look silly, you know, the cap would be twisting like this as it went forward. You know, you have to be pretty careful with this to get it right on the money. So in this case, I'm set up to be able to pull the inwhale down. And you can see that I'm turning the clamp with my left hand and spacing it with my right hand. And, you know, I'll check this stuff all again, but you can see it moving down. Just like that, right there. So we're going to clamp that so it doesn't move because I don't want it to lay off of the frames. It makes the fit up forward impossible, really does. Well, I'm up forward here and I finally got it into position. Now, it's in a rough position really, but it's pretty close. So what I want to do now is saw this end off, and I don't want to saw it too short, that's for sure. That's real easy to do. You know, that wouldn't work for me at all. So I'm going to move this square up just a little beyond, and it'll look like I'm cutting it a little long. But I'm going to do a saw fit on this as well. And, oh, let me just get it right here. And now this fit is different than the one back aft, because the one back aft was 90 degrees to the top of the piece of material like that. 90 degrees to the inwhale. And this one back here's got a little angle on it. And the reason why that is, you can't push it up like this to fit it like the other one, because then that one won't fit. You know, the other thing is to make it fit right, you have to have this thing clamped in position real well, because if it's off the frames a little bit, and then you fit this, and then you go tighten it up to the frames, this is going to be too short. You know, so, you know, you have to be pretty careful with this cut. So I'm cutting it a tiny bit long. Now, the way you fit it is, you pick it up, and then you drop it in the slot. You know, hopefully it will be just long enough to do a saw fit or two, and that's the way we're going to do it. Now, I got to draw a line vertical right here. I'm going to have to do it right like this. I'm having a hard time with that. Okay. Okay, that's my line to cut right there. So I'm going to put this in there and twist it like that. And beat it downhill a little bit. Maybe work it over here, because I have to get the end of this thing as stable as possible to cut it. Otherwise, it'll just vibrate like crazy and you can't get anywhere. This clamp is just big enough. You gotta get going on the line, the direction that you want to finish up. Otherwise, you know, you can't steer the thing halfway through the cut. You just can't do it. And you're out of position making this cut standing on a step ladder, so, you know, it might be a little bit shaky, but it gets done. Then you have to stand the saw up straight to finish up. And, you know, that's a little odd, too. If you don't have that saw lined up with that cut, it won't cooperate with you. So as soon as it starts jamming a little bit, you start adjusting your angle, and then you find out that if you can just use muscle memory, you can stay in that angle and make the cut. Like that. Now, it won't go in because it's just a touch long. So the angle makes it so that I can do this and then put it in there. And then drop it down like that, and we'll see what the fit looks like. It's a little tight right here and a little loose at the top. So I can't really do a saw fit on it if it's tight like that. It's going to pinch the saw and be just embarrassing. You just can't do them. So what you want to do is make a little space in there, right? Just a tiny bit of space, like that. And I can saw fit the bottom without the top. And then I'll tap it up a little bit farther. But in order to even do that, it has to be clamped tightly into position. Otherwise, you will struggle. The thing will vibrate up and down and have all kinds of different problems. So this time around, I'm going to saw mostly the end of the inwhale. All right, you're gonna have to do it again. I knew that I was gonna have to do a couple of saw fits to get this thing to fit right, and I made sure that I cut it too long, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't be happy at all. So, you know, I cut it once. I was cutting the end of the inwhale, and then I pushed it down some, not perfectly tight. I tightened it up once, but then I pushed it back up again. And I just got it so there was a little space again, and then I'm just gonna take and fit it one more time with the saw. All right, let's push it down again. Just like that. I got that in 2 saw fits, so that's good enough right there. And you know, it's right down to the bottom. Maybe another swat here. We'll get it right down to the very bottom of the breast hook, and that's what we wanted. Just like the other one. Let me tap the other one down. Just like that. They both fit real nice. Well, there's our inwhales right in there. The starboard one's fastened in, and the port one's just clamped in. So I'm gonna go along and screw that in place. But it's right in place, so this is pretty much the way it's gonna look. I just, you know, I had envisioned this so many years ago, and here it is basically, the caps put on it and some finish work, and we're going for a ride, you know, and it's gonna be fun, really. For me, it's just gonna be outrageous. So, you know, I know what the boat's gonna feel like. Heavy, solid, real solid. It'll have a solid noise, it'll have a solid feel, and I can't wait to take it for a ride, because all the things I thought about the boat, I'm hoping, you know, are the way it is when we take it for a ride, you know. That's a bit of a project sometimes right there. I've made mistakes on it before, to tell you the honest truth, so I had a space on either end or one end, and you know, this time we've got them butted right into the lodging knees and right into the breast hook, and it's going to stay that way, and they're tight. There's tricks to it. You have to have this stuff clamped up tight when you're fitting one end, because if it's loose, when you go back later and clamp it, you're going to have a space. You know, it's embarrassing is what it is, you know, and it's a procedure that I worked out, you know, actually in my head, how to go about this one, because it's different than the others that I've done. I had a square fit on both ends. You know, you can't even do that, because you get it tight on that end, you square fit this end, how are you going to close the gap up? You can't do it, you know. So, you know, this is just great, and the boat needs its caps, which we're going to do, and they're going to have grain following right around the sheer, quarter sawn on both sides, you know, and this lumber that we made this boat out of, this is pretty much impossible to get. So when I look at the boat, you know, it's got a quality feel because of the lumber, and I tried to add my quality to it too.